to the Conquer That Cake Pop Challenge. We're gonna do Scooby-Doo. So we're gonna build our little Scooby. Got a chocolate and black cherry, which makes a black forest cake. It absolutely smells amazing. All right, so we've got our cake pop dough. My rule of thumb is if you make one, that's fantastic. However, one is none. So if something would go wrong, I would have to start all back over. So instead of making just one cake pop, I'm gonna roll out and see how tacky it is. So I'm gonna actually do a couple here, and then we'll just do one build. All right, you guys, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section. As I see them, I will answer them. Okay, so I've got 3 of them. That should be enough to get started. Let's move this out of the way. Okay, so I'm gonna dip my stick. White chocolate, it's just straight white chocolate out of the bag, melted. And I'm just gonna tap off as much of it as I can. And what that's gonna do is gonna create a barrier between my lollipops paper stick and my cake pop dough. So it's about 1 inch to 1.25 inches on the stick, and I'm just gonna sit that aside while I prep the cake pop dough, and I'm gonna let that chocolate harden on a lollipop stick. All right, so I did 3 cake pop dough balls, so I'm gonna do 3 lollipop sticks prepped, and then I'll just let them sit on the side. I'm gonna swap out my white chocolate, and I'm gonna bring my other chocolate over. All right, I'm gonna give it a good stir. Now, the best way to not get your cake pop to crack after you dip is to make sure that your cake pop dough and your chocolate are about as close to the same temperature as possible. That it melts, it's nice and pourable. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a nice pourable chocolate. It's still warm. The cake pop dough has been out. It is room temperature. All right, so let's go ahead while my cake pop sticks are hardening. I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to roll. If you look at our Scooby, he has a forehead that we need to take into account for. He's got a rounded nose area, and I've got a little section for a neck so that I can put his collar on. So there's 3 distinct things that I'm gonna roll all at the same time. Or I'm gonna try, I'm gonna attempt. Because remember, it's soft. All I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna squeeze it, squeeze it, squeeze it. I'm just gonna flatten it, flatten it, flatten it. And then I'm just gonna roll in my natural direction that I would roll, you know, whatever feels comfortable for you. I'm just gonna roll, and I'm gonna push and squeeze at the same time. I'm just gonna push and squeeze, and all I'm doing is trying to get rid of any air pockets in there. You're gonna roll it counterclockwise, the opposite direction that you just did. You're gonna cup your hand in the bottom, and you're gonna flatten your hand at the top, and you're gonna just roll it backwards a couple of times, and voila, all of a sudden now you have this beautiful, perfect round ball. I don't know the science behind it. One of these days I'm actually gonna look. So now that we have all the air pockets out, I'm gonna flatten it like kind of a sausage, or at least more rounded like this. Okay? So from there, I'm gonna go 3/4 of the way back. I'm gonna create the bridge for Scooby's nose. And all I'm doing is I'm just pushing the cake pop dough so it looks like this L shape. I'm just pushing, shoving my fingers in there where his eye sockets would be, and then I'm just gonna round that top. I'm just gonna roll it around in my hands to create the bridge of his nose, like so. Okay, and now I'm gonna focus on rounding the bridge of his nose. Just gonna round that out a little bit, all the way to the end. I'm going to make sure the bridge of his nose stays there. Then I'm going to roll it over to the bottom, and I'm going to pull back from underneath his jowls and create, just going to push just like I did for the bridge of his nose. I'm just going to push around. See, now here's his bridge. Here's the bridge of his nose. Here's his nose. And here's where his neck's going to be. And I'm just creating that little indent in there, and then I'm just going to go around and smooth out all of my finger marks. I know it doesn't look like much just yet, but it will, I promise. All right, and then I'm going to round his nose again. Make sure I keep that bridge of his nose. Do his eyes again. Make sure it's all in one place. So now we have this round, bulbous part for his nose and his brow. I don't know if you can see that. All right. Now, while I have it in my hand, I have this little tool. On his nose, if you notice his cheekbones, we're just going to push in right below here and make a separation. And then I'm going to roll it underneath to create where the jowl is out. There's one side and there's two sides. Okay, so now I have where his nose is at, and then I have the bone tool, and I'm just going to lay it up against the side of his mouth and create a little indent. Can you see that? I'm going to roll it over and do the same on this side. And the two of those should meet right here. I'm just going to make sure I enhance that a little bit. On this, I'm just going to create that indent. Oops, I used the wrong part on the tool. Alright, so now we have his nose and his eyes. I'm just going to make sure my fingerprints are all smoothed out. And then I'm just going to sit him down, and I'm going to do real quick, I'm going to do the second one. Just going to try to create a little flat spot on the bottom so he sits. All right, now let me do these other two, because two is one is none. All right, we're going to take our lollipop stick that we've already dipped, and we're going to dip just like 1/4 of an inch of our stick into our chocolate. Let me give this one more stir. We want to make sure that the heat is evenly spread through our chocolate so that there's no cool spot, but it's all even. And it's right there, that beautiful, perfect spot. It's not too hot, it's not too cold. All right, so all I did was dip about 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to tap off that excess. So I'm going to start right here in the middle. And as I put it in and go towards the top, I'm going to spin it very slowly. I want that chocolate that's at room temperature connect with the cake pop dough on the inside, and you can feel it catching. And when you feel it catching, you want to spin it backwards slowly, half a turn, to kind of like lock that in place. And that is so, so key. So when you do that, now I'm squeezing it a little bit hard, so I want to make sure that all of my fingerprints are off of there. Let it sit over there for a moment while we go ahead and create all of his elements. So as you can see, his eyes, we've got the white part, and then we have the pupil, which is black. I have a number 6 here. I also have a number 12 here. I have already gone ahead and taken my modeling chocolate. So I've got white and I've got black. Now when you're working with modeling chocolate, use corn syrup if it's tacky, because that corn syrup will help pull out some of that moisture. So I just put a little bit on my parchment paper on my fingers, and I'm just going to rub a little bit on that white. It seems super, super tacky. I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing on this side as well. So it makes it a little bit easier to work with. Okay. So we're going to start with the whites of his eye. I'm just taking the 12 tip. I'm going to pop them out. Remember, 2 is 1, 1 is none. So I'm going to do a couple extra eyes here just in case. Okay, so let's put this over here for now. I'm going to flip these over. We've got the whites of the eye done. Now we're going to do the people. I'm just going to take that black modeling chocolate. I've already put it through my KitchenAid pasta maker. I've done it nice and thin. It's ready to go. If you don't have a pasta maker, that's okay. You just need a rolling pin. Like, roll it out nice and thin. All right, and that should be it. All right, now when you're using chocolate, now I really don't have to do this because everything's tacky, but just for the record, water is my glue with tiny pieces like this. All I have to do is put a dot of water on my white modeling chocolate, and then all I'm going to do is stick the black pieces right on top of, oh, that's a lot of water on there. Too much water. I'm just pulling that water back off of there. It won't stick correctly if it's too much water. Get back on there. All right, so here's my handy dandy knife. It is my right hand, especially when I'm working with little tiny pieces and I can't lift them up, especially when my hands are so hot. I'm just lifting it up. I'm putting it right on top of that water droplet, and it becomes the glue. And I'm just pushing it down just enough to make sure that it's firmly stuck on there. We've got our eyes, so we can go ahead and put this away. We're going to go ahead and pull the pink out. I've got pink already that I've rolled out. This is for the inside of his ears, and then I have the brown for the outside of his ears. So this one here I'll roll out. I left one to roll out so you can see what I'm doing. So again, it's real tacky. I don't know if you can see, my hands are so hot, it's really shiny. That's because it's melting in my fingers. All right, we're just going to use a little bit of that cornstarch to take that tackiness away so it doesn't stick to everything. And I'm just going to use my rolling pin. Okay. Make sure it's not sticking. Now, these are teardrop shapes. Little cutters. I actually got these from the Michael's in the clay section. So I'm going to use them. The brown part, I'm going to use the bigger teardrop for the outer part of his ear. I'm going to do 4 of those. And I'm not going to stick my finger down in there because I won't be able to get it out. I'm just using another tool to pop it out. Should be enough for the demo. Now I'm just going to take it. One thing I don't like about the metal cutters is where the metal comes together, that always leaves that little bump. So all I'm doing is using the heat from my hand to soften that spot up and make it a little bit more firm and cause that edge to go away. All right, let's go ahead and remove this here. We're going to do the same thing. I already have 4 of them here. All right, so for these ears, I want to narrow it down just a little bit. Like, I could put it on there, but I think that's just too much pink for the inside of Scooby's ear. So I'm just going to slice down just a little bit on the sides. Take a little bit extra off the bottom, create it a little bit smaller. Once again, I'm going to take my paintbrush and just put a little bit of water right there in the center. I'm going to lift this up, put it in my fingers because my fingers are hot. And I just want to round that edge just a little bit, so it's not so pointy. Okay. So there's one. Let's do one more. All right, we're just going to leave them off to the side for a minute. We've got his ears done, his eyes done. We're going to go ahead and try to dip these ones. Because it's not sitting on there right up and down, I'm going to make sure that the bulk of the weight is at the top. So when I'm going to dip this, I'm going to first of all put it in at a 45-degree angle, and I am going to spin it just until the chocolate touches itself all the way up to the lollipop stick. I don't want to keep it down in the weight of the chocolate, so I'm going to put it in, spin it, and pull it back out at the same time. All right, I'm going to help it out by, I'm going to spin it and all the way up, and now I'm going to hold it upright. My stick is still at a 45-degree angle because the weight of that chocolate is now pulling down on my cake pop, and I'm not going to tap the side of the pan. I want some of that chocolate to come off. This cake pop dough has all that black cherry pie filling stuff in there because it might actually fall off. So I'm just going to shake it here until the drips come off. And in the meantime, I'm looking for air pockets. You need to pop those because what happens is as your chocolate cools, they will pop, they'll force themselves to the surface, and then they will pop all on their own. If they pop on their own, that opens up a pinhole to your cake pop dough. So make sure that you are popping those air bubbles in your chocolate whenever you see them, because they will pop as it cools. Okay, and I'm just going to take a little bit of that chocolate off the bottom. Like so. All right, and we'll let it sit over here. Let's do the other one just in case. Now I'm going to put it in at a 45, spin it quickly, and pull it back out. Up. I'm going to lose it. We're going to spin it until I can get the balance. Did you see that? It was spinning. I told you I should have probably put it in the refrigerator, but I didn't. It wasn't quite firm on the inside, but I just kept spinning it until I could get the weight to the top. Now I'm going to salvage it, and I'll be able to use this one. And that's the key, is don't panic. If you can feel it happening, counteract that. So that's what I did. I felt it spinning on my lollipop stick, and I quickly pulled that to the top so that the weight is at the top, and now I can balance it, and now I can still actually tap it off. When that chocolate firms up, it'll stay on the stick, and we won't have an issue. It might just be sunk in a little bit farther, but it'll still be good. So I'm just gonna try to keep it balanced on the top. Meanwhile, I'm looking for air pockets that are developing. There's an air bubble here, and there. All right, and then we'll let it sit over here. Here is my one, the extra one that I did earlier today, so we're gonna go ahead and use him for my sample for the rest of this. At this point, we're gonna go ahead and put some eyes on them. A little bit of water on the bridge. I'm gonna use my handy dandy knife. Okay, let's put the other one on right beside it. Okay, so we have his eyes on there. I need to grab some black because we need his eyebrows. We're going to put his eyebrows on right next to it before we put his ears on, so we don't have to try to get in there, tight spaces. So I'm just pulling off a little bit of modeling chocolate, kind of even it up. That one's not enough. Okay. There's one eyebrow. There's two eyebrows. Again, I'm just going to use just a little bit of water. One here. And one here. Okay. In the same respect, I'm going to take the ear. Oh, let me show you this real quick. So I've got his ear here, and in order to get it to stand on his head, I'm just going to put a little divot, which will help it fold a little bit more. So because it's rounded, I don't want it to fall off. I want to give it just a space, kind of like a perforation, so that when I fold it, it's going to fold into itself, like so. So let me do that on this one. Now, because this is heavier than the eyes, I'm going to actually use chocolate to hold it in place. Oh, the other thing I want to do is just clip that bottom corner off so I have a nice firm spot that I can use to put it on his head. I want to put just a little glue dot of chocolate. One here and one here, just right above his eyeball or eyebrows. I'm going to stick this one on here. Oops, I put it on the backwards. Put it on this way. And I just want to manipulate his ear. Sorry, my hands are so hot, it's melting. I didn't actually need that chocolate on there. And then I use this one for this side. And I'm just going to roll it. I'm going to manipulate it, just push it, and manipulate his ears a little bit. And then all I'm doing, I'm using the heat of my hands to my advantage, and I'm just smoothing it so you don't even see the line between where they're at, where the ear is connecting. Alrighty. So now, all we need to do is put a nose on him and put his mouth on, and we are done. So let's take this little bit of chocolate. His nose is more or less a triangle. So I'm literally just taking a little bit of modeling chocolate and making a triangle. If I can keep it in my hands. I'm going to flatten it because it's too high. And I'm going to find my paintbrush. I'm just going to use a little bit of water. And take that nose and I'm going to sit it right there on the end, like so. Right at the top, I don't know if you can see in the camera, but right here is where I use this tool to put that indent. I'm going to line up the bottom point of that triangle right with that indent. And I'm just going to push that nose on, like so. Make sure it's even. And then I'm going to grab my poppy paint. Let me open up my poppy paint. That's my paintbrush for water. So we'll get my other paintbrush for painting. Okay. Now, the chocolate has covered up that indentation. You can see it here a little bit, but I want to follow that line where I indented on his mouth. Underneath the bottom, all the way up to his nose. I'm going to do the other side. I think it goes about right to here. And then Snoopy has this funny looking smile, so we're just going to add that in there as well. Let's make this just a little bit darker. Then we'll do the same thing on this side. And that's it. That's it. We got to put a sparkle on his eye. That was the other thing. We'll get a little bit of white poppy paint and we'll just kind of bring him to life. This is the life giver of your creations. You can use white chocolate if you want. I just happen to have poppy paints, but I'm going to make them come to life. I'm just going to put a little bit of glint. Try that again. A little bit of glint in his eye. Like that. And the reflection on the top of his nose. Oops, that was a little too much. So for the collar, what I do with it, here's the one of the other tools that is a must-have in my kitchen. Real quick, I'll show you. It's my clay extruder, and on my clay extruder, It's got this beautiful tip. We'll push that modeling chocolate back down in there. It's got this beautiful tip. It's a little teeny tiny rectangle. It makes wonderful colors. It makes stripes for your bees, your bumblebees. It's just the perfect size. We're almost done. Thanks for hanging in there, guys. All right, so here we go. I got this nice little strand. Just clean it off my palette knife. I cut a spot off. And I know that I don't need any more than that, so we'll just cut that off. I'm going to use my paintbrush, and I'm going to add a little bit of water to the very tippy top, because I just want it to barely touch his neck. Right across the top. Right across the top. No more. Alright, so now we got this spot down below where his neck is at. We're going to pick up, here again I'm using this knife, I'm going to pick it up where the water is at the top. I'm going to put it around his neck, and it's going to stick. I'm just going to roll it and let it do its thing until I get around the back to where it overlays, and then I'm going to cut a nice little straight line, pull that off, and then I'm going to stick them together. And because it's chocolate, I can put it together and it'll stick like so. And voila, we now have Scooby's collar.